Hello, horror lovers. Welcome to our channel. If you enjoy that spine-chilling sensation before going to sleep, you're in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. This is really important to me. Like the video, and don't forget to comment which city you're watching from. Leave your comment now because you'll probably fall asleep after this story. Your support helps us keep bringing the best horror stories. Now turn off the lights. Mr. Lambert? One of them asked, hefting a heavy box. Just put it in the living room for now, I replied, distracted by a strange shimmer in the air near one of the upstairs doors. As I climbed the stairs, each step felt like it was sinking slightly beneath my weight. The wood groaned, protesting my presence. I reached the landing and approached the door that had caught my attention. It was unremarkable, plain white with a simple brass knob, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me. My hand hovered over the doorknob, trembling slightly. A voice from downstairs snapped me out of my trance. "Mr. Lambert? We've got a question about the study furniture." I jerked my hand back, heart pounding. "Coming," I called out, my voice sounding thin and strained. The rest of the day passed in a blur of unpacking and arranging. As twilight fell, I found myself alone in the house for the first time. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak or groan of settling wood. I wandered from room to room, trying to feel at home. Each space felt slightly off, as if the dimensions were just a hair's breadth from what they should be. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, hoping it would calm my nerves. "Get it together, Alex," I said aloud, my voice startlingly loud in the quiet house. "It's just an old house, nothing to be afraid of." As if in response, a door slammed upstairs. I nearly dropped my glass, whiskey sloshing over the rim. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Is someone there?" Silence. Heart pounding, I crept up the stairs, cursing myself for not checking all the rooms properly earlier. The landing was dark, the fading daylight barely penetrating the gloom. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers scraping against the unfamiliar wall. Click. Harsh fluorescent light flooded the hallway, revealing nothing. Just a row of closed doors, innocuous and still. I let out a shaky breath, feeling foolish. "Damn it, Alex, you're jumping at shadows," I muttered. I turned to head back downstairs when something caught my eye. The door I'd noticed earlier, the one that had seemed to shimmer, was now slightly ajar. I froze, staring at the sliver of darkness visible through the crack. "I could have sworn that was closed," I whispered, my mouth dry. Against my better judgment, I found myself moving towards the door. My hand reached out, almost of its own volition, and pushed it open. The room beyond was pitch black. I fumbled for a light switch but found nothing. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive and hungry. "Hello?" I called out again, my voice swallowed by the void. Suddenly, a gust of icy wind rushed past me, carrying with it a whisper that chilled me to my core. "Welcome home, Alex." I slammed the door shut, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. I stumbled backwards, nearly falling down the stairs in my haste to get away. Back in the kitchen, I poured another whiskey with shaking hands, spilling half of it on the counter. I gulped it down, trying to convince myself that it was just my imagination, just the stress of the move playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew. This house was not the sanctuary I had hoped for. It was something else entirely, something hungry and patient, and I had just willingly walked into its maw. As I stood there, the ice in my glass clinking gently, I heard it again. The soft click of a door opening upstairs, and another, and another. I realized then that my fresh start had become a nightmare. This house with its watchful doors and hungry shadows would be anything but a sanctuary. It was a labyrinth, a prison, and I was its newest inmate. The real horror was just beginning. Sleep eluded me that first night in the house. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with the strange occurrences of the day. The whispers, the slamming doors, the oppressive atmosphere. It all felt like a bad dream. By the time dawn broke, I was exhausted but relieved to see sunlight streaming through the curtains. Just nerves, I mumbled, rubbing my bleary eyes. It'll be better today. I dragged myself out of bed, desperate for coffee. As I reached for the bedroom door, a chill ran down my spine. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. Something about it felt wrong. Don't be ridiculous, I chided myself. It's just a door. Taking a deep breath, I turned the knob and pulled the door open. The hallway beyond was exactly as I expected. Hardwood floors, cream-colored walls, the staircase leading down to the foyer. I let out a nervous chuckle, shaking my head at my own paranoia. See? Nothing to worry about. I stepped into the hallway and closed the bedroom door behind me. The soft click of the latch engaging echoed in the quiet house. And then, everything changed. The floor beneath my feet shifted, transforming from hard wood to something soft and yielding. A warm breeze caressed my face, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of salt and seaweed. I blinked, unable to process what I was seeing. Where the hallway had been just moments before, there was now an expanse of golden sand stretching out before me. Gentle waves lapped at the shore, and a brilliant sun hung in a cloudless sky. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, their fronds casting dancing shadows on the beach. "What the hell?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of the surf. I spun around, expecting to see my bedroom door, but there was nothing behind me except more beach. My heart began to race as panic set in. "This isn't real," I said aloud, my voice shaking. "I'm dreaming. I have to be dreaming." I pinched myself hard, wincing at the pain. But the scene didn't change. The sand between my toes felt all too real, the sun warm on my skin. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing strangely in this impossible place. "Is anyone there?" Only the cry of distant seagulls answered me. I started walking, my bare feet sinking into the warm sand. Each step felt surreal, my mind struggling to reconcile what I was experiencing with what I knew to be possible. After what seemed like hours but could have been minutes, I spotted something in the distance, a door standing alone on the beach. As I approached, I recognized it as my bedroom door, looking comically out of place against the tropical backdrop. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob. "Please," I whispered, not sure who or what I was pleading with. "Please let this be the way back." I turned the knob and pulled the door open. Beyond it, I saw my bedroom exactly as I had left it. Without hesitation, I stepped through and slammed the door behind me. The sudden silence was deafening. The scent of the ocean lingered in my nostrils, and I could still feel grains of sand between my toes. I sank to the floor, my back against the door, trying to make sense of what had just happened. It wasn't real, I told myself, my voice sounding hollow in the quiet room. It couldn't have been real. But when I looked down, I saw sand clinging to my feet and the hem of my pajama pants. On an impulse, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small seashell I didn't remember picking up. A hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest. "Oh God," I gasped. It was real. It was all real. I sat there for a long time, turning the seashell over in my hands, my mind reeling. Eventually, I forced myself to stand on shaky legs. I had to test it, to see if it would happen again. With trembling fingers, I grasped the doorknob once more. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever might be on the other side. "Here goes nothing," I muttered. I opened the door. The familiar hallway greeted me, looking perfectly normal. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by doubt. Had I imagined the whole thing? I stepped into the hallway, and before I could second-guess myself, closed the door behind me. The transformation was instant. The hallway dissolved away, replaced by a dense, steaming jungle. The air was thick and humid, filled with the calls of exotic birds and the buzz of insects. Massive trees towered overhead, their canopies blocking out most of the sky. "No, no, no," I moaned, spinning around to find the door gone once again. As the reality of my situation sank in, a new, terrifying thought occurred to me. If opening and closing doors could transport me to different places, how would I ever find my way back to my own world? The jungle seemed to press in around me, watchful and alive. In that moment, I realized that my life had irrevocably changed. The house I had hoped would be my sanctuary had become a portal to unknown worlds, each door a potential gateway to wonder or horror. And I was trapped, a reluctant explorer in a labyrinth of realities, with no idea how to find my way home. Days blended into weeks as I grappled with the bizarre reality of my new existence. Each door in the house had become a portal to another world, and my initial fascination had quickly given way to a gnawing dread. I'd taken to carrying a small notebook, documenting each new reality I encountered in a desperate attempt to find some pattern, some way to control where I ended up. This particular morning I stood before the bathroom door, my hand trembling as I reached for the knob. My reflection in the mirror looked haggard, dark circles under my eyes testament to sleepless nights filled with worry. "You can do this, Alex," I muttered to myself. "It's just a door. Just a goddamn door." I turned the knob and stepped through, my heart racing. The bathroom vanished, replaced by a vast red desert stretching to the horizon. 2 suns blazed overhead in an alien sky, and strange crystalline formations jutted from the sand like the bones of some long-dead behemoth. "Shit," I hissed, fumbling for my notebook. Desert world, 2 suns, crystal formations, no signs of life. The heat was oppressive, instantly causing sweat to bead on my forehead. I knew I couldn't stay long. Dehydration would set in quickly in this environment. I turned, relieved to see the bathroom door still standing incongruously in the sand. As I reached for it, a low rumble shook the ground. One of the crystal formations near me began to move, unfolding like some kind of geometric flower. I caught a glimpse of something dark and sinuous within before I yanked the door open and threw myself through. I landed hard on the bathroom tile, gasping. The door slammed shut behind me, cutting off the alien heat and the ominous rumbling. For a moment, I just lay there, trying to slow my racing heart. "That was too close," I panted. "Too damn close." Once I had caught my breath, I pushed myself to my feet. My clothes were covered in reddish sand, another physical reminder that these experiences weren't just in my head. I brushed myself off as best I could and steeled myself for the next journey. The living room door was my next target. I approached it warily, acutely aware that my house had become a labyrinth of unpredictable portals. With a deep breath, I opened the door and stepped through. The scene that greeted me stole my breath away. I stood on a narrow stone bridge spanning an impossibly vast chasm. Far below, I could see clouds and flashes of lightning. Above, floating islands drifted serenely, waterfalls spilling from their edges into the abyss. "My God," I whispered, awestruck despite my fear. I took a cautious step forward, the wind whipping around me. The bridge seemed solid enough, but vertigo threatened to overwhelm me as I glanced down at the yawning void beneath my feet. A sound caught my attention. Voices carried on the wind. I squinted, spotting movement on one of the floating islands. People, or at least something that looked like people from this distance. "Hello," I shouted, waving my arms. "Can you hear me? I need help." The figures turned in my direction, and for a moment hope surged in my chest. Then I saw them unfurl massive bat-like wings. They launched themselves from the island, soaring towards me with inhuman speed. "No, no, no," I stammered, stumbling backwards. I ran for the door, the whoosh of giant wings growing louder behind me. I didn't dare look back, focusing solely on the rectangle of safety that was my portal home. I hit the door at full speed, nearly falling through as I slammed it shut behind me. The sudden silence of my living room was shocking. I leaned against the door, sliding down to sit on the floor as my legs gave out. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely write in my notebook. "Floating islands," I muttered as I scribbled. "Chasm. Winged humanoids. Hostile." A humorless laugh escaped me. The situation was escalating rapidly. What had started as a strange, even wondrous phenomenon was turning into something far more dangerous. Each door I opened was a gamble, potentially leading to wonders beyond imagination or horrors that defied comprehension. I hauled myself to my feet, exhaustion warring with the knowledge that I couldn't stop. I had to keep exploring, had to find a way to control this power or find my way back to normality. As I moved towards the kitchen intending to get a glass of water, a noise from upstairs made me freeze. It sounded like scratching, coming from behind one of the doors I hadn't opened yet. "Hello?" I called out, my voice quavering. "Is someone there?" The scratching intensified, accompanied by a low, guttural growl that was decidedly inhuman. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on the stairs. "What have I unleashed?" I whispered, a new and terrible thought occurring to me. If I could travel to these other worlds, what was to stop something from those worlds from finding its way here? The growling grew louder, and I heard the distinct sound of claws scrabbling against wood. Whatever was up there, it was trying to get out. I ran to the front door, yanking it open, desperate to escape the house and its impossible doors. But instead of my quiet Chicago street, I found myself staring into an endless void, pinpricks of distant stars, the only light in the cosmic darkness. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it as panic threatened to overwhelm me. I was trapped, caught between the horrors I had unwittingly invited into my home and the vast, uncaring universe that lay beyond every exit. As the scratching upstairs grew more frenzied, I realized with growing horror that my nightmare was only beginning. The boundaries between worlds were breaking down, and I was at the center of the storm. The realization that I was truly trapped hit me like a physical blow. My sanctuary had become a prison, each door a potential gateway to doom. The scratching upstairs had stopped, but the silence was almost worse. I knew something was up there waiting. I paced the living room, my mind racing. "Think, Alex, think," I muttered, running my hands through my hair. "There has to be a way out." I'd tried the windows earlier, but they all opened to the same star-filled void I'd seen through the front door. My phone had no signal, and my laptop couldn't connect to any networks. It was as if my house had been cut off from the rest of reality. A loud thump from upstairs made me jump. Whatever was up there was getting more active. I needed to find a way out, and fast. I approached the kitchen door, taking a deep breath to steady myself. "Okay, Alex, one more try. Maybe this time." I opened the door and stepped through, hope dying in my chest as I found myself in a vast underground cavern. Phosphorescent fungi cast an eerie blue glow over everything, revealing strange, twisted rock formations and deep, dark pools of water. "Damn it," I shouted, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. "Let me out." As if in response, something stirred in one of the pools. I saw a ripple, then another, moving towards the shore where I stood. "Oh no, you don't," I muttered, backing away. I turned and ran for the door, yanking it open and tumbling through just as a massive, pale tentacle broke the surface of the water. I slammed the door shut, leaning against it and sliding to the floor. Tears of frustration welled in my eyes. "I can't keep doing this," I whispered. "I can't." A noise from the living room caught my attention. It sounded like humming. My heart leaped. Another person? Had someone somehow found their way into my house? I crept towards the living room, hope and fear warring in my chest. As I peered around the corner, I saw a figure standing by the fireplace, its back to me. It was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shimmer slightly in the dim light. "Hello?" I called out cautiously. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" The figure turned, and I had to stifle a scream. Its face was featureless, smooth gray skin where eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. Yet somehow, I could feel it looking at me. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in my mind. "We've been waiting for you, Alex," it said, its mental voice oddly soothing despite its alien appearance. "We've been waiting so long." I backed away, my heart pounding. "What are you? What do you want from me?" The creature took a step towards me, its movements fluid and unnatural. "We are the gatekeepers," it said, "and you, Alex, are a keymaster. Do you not see? You've opened the ways between worlds." "I didn't mean to," I stammered. "I just want to go home. I want things to go back to normal." The creature's head tilted to one side, an oddly human gesture. There is no going back, Keymaster. The doors have been opened. The barriers between realities grow thin. A crash from upstairs made us both look up. The thing I'd heard earlier was getting more aggressive. "What is that?" I asked, dreading the answer. "A harbinger," the creature replied. "The first of many. As the barriers weaken, more will come through. Some wondrous, some terrible." I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications sank in. "Are you saying I've started some kind of invasion?" The creature shook its head. "Not an invasion. An awakening. A convergence of realities. And you, Keymaster, are at the center of it all." Another crash from upstairs, louder this time. Plaster dust rained down from the ceiling. "I don't want this," I said, my voice breaking. "I just wanted a fresh start, a new home. I didn't ask for any of this." The creature moved closer, its featureless face inches from mine. "And yet here you are. The choice is no longer yours, Keymaster. You've set events in motion that cannot be undone. There has to be a way," I insisted, desperation creeping into my voice. "I'll close all the doors. I'll destroy the house if I have to." The creature's mental voice took on a tone of pity. "Oh, Alex, don't you understand? The house is no longer just a house. It's become a nexus, a focal point for the energies you've unleashed. Destroying it would only accelerate the process." A deafening roar shook the house, followed by the sound of splintering wood. Whatever was upstairs had broken free. The creature turned towards the stairs. "It comes," it said. "The harbinger approaches. You must make a choice, Keymaster. Will you run, or will you face what you've unleashed?" I looked frantically around the room, searching for any escape. But I knew deep down that there was nowhere left to run. Every door was a gamble, every window a portal to the unknown. Heavy footsteps descended the stairs, accompanied by a low, rumbling growl that made my bones vibrate. "What do I do?" I asked, hating how small and scared my voice sounded. The creature turned its featureless face to me one last time. "You open the way, Keymaster. It's what you were meant to do." As the thing from upstairs reached the bottom of the stairs, its massive shadow looming in the hallway, I realized the terrible truth. I wasn't just trapped in this house. I was trapped between realities, caught in a web of cosmic forces I'd unwittingly set in motion. And as the harbinger of what was to come lumbered into view, its form a nightmarish blend of flesh and shadow, I understood that my ordeal was far from over. It was, in fact, only beginning. The encounter with the harbinger left me shaken to my core. I had narrowly escaped by diving through the nearest door, which had mercifully led me to a peaceful meadow. But I couldn't stay there forever. Eventually, I had to return to the house, to the nexus, as the featureless creature had called it. Days blended into an indistinguishable blur as I continued my desperate exploration, hoping against hope to find a way back to my own reality. But with each door I opened, each new world I stumbled into, I felt myself slipping further from sanity. It was on what I estimated to be the 10th day of my ordeal that I encountered the dark place. I stood before the door to my home office, my hand trembling as I reached for the knob. I'd been avoiding this room, irrationally fearing that it might somehow be connected to my old life, my old problems. But I had run out of options. "Come on, Alex," I muttered to myself. "It's just another door. You can do this." I took a deep breath, turned the knob, and stepped through. The darkness that engulfed me was absolute. I blinked rapidly, waiting for my eyes to adjust, but no light penetrated this inky void. The air was thick, almost viscous, and unnaturally cold. It felt as if the darkness itself was pressing against me, probing, searching. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding muffled and strange. "Is anyone there?" No response came, but I felt something shift in the darkness. A presence, vast and alien, becoming aware of me. I fumbled for the flashlight I'd taken to carrying, my fingers clumsy with fear. When I finally managed to switch it on, I almost wished I hadn't. The beam seemed to be swallowed by the darkness, illuminating nothing beyond a few inches in front of me. "Okay, Alex, don't panic," I said aloud, trying to calm myself. "Just find the door and get out of here." I turned, expecting to see the rectangle of light from the doorway I'd entered through. But there was nothing, just more impenetrable darkness. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the true horror of my situation. I was lost in a featureless void, with no way to orient myself and no idea how to get back. I started walking, or at least I thought I was walking. It was impossible to tell if I was making any progress. The beam of my flashlight continued to illuminate nothing but empty space. "Hello?" I called out again, louder this time. "Can anyone hear me?" As if in response, I felt something brush against my arm. I jerked away, my heart pounding. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice cracking with fear. A whisper came from the darkness, so quiet I almost missed it. "Alex." I spun around, waving my flashlight frantically. "Who said that? Show yourself." "Alex." The voice came again, slightly louder this time. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. "What do you want?" I shouted, fear giving way to anger. "What is this place?" The darkness seemed to thicken around me, pressing in. I felt something grip my ankle, and I kicked out instinctively, connecting with nothing. "This is the space between," a new voice said, this one deeper and somehow older. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The void that separates realities." I laughed hysterically. "Great, just great. I've fallen into some kind of interdimensional garbage disposal." "Not garbage," the voice corrected. "Potential. Everything that could be but isn't. Not yet." A shape began to form in the darkness in front of me. At first it was just a slightly darker patch of shadow, but slowly it coalesced into a humanoid figure. As it solidified, I realized with a jolt that I was looking at myself, or rather, a version of myself. This other Alex looked older, his hair streaked with gray, his face lined with worry and fatigue. He regarded me with a mixture of pity and resignation. "Who? What are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm you," he replied. "Or rather, one possible you. One of many." As he spoke, more figures began to emerge from the darkness. I saw myself as a child, as an old man, as someone barely recognizable. Some versions of me looked happy and successful, others broken and defeated. "What is this?" I demanded, backing away from the crowd of my own faces. "Some kind of trick?" The older version of me shook his head. "No trick, Alex. This is the nature of reality, or rather, realities. Every choice, every decision, creates new possibilities, new timelines. Most remain just that, possibilities. But some," he gestured around at the darkness, "some end up here, in the space between, waiting." "Waiting for what?" I asked, dreading the answer. "For a keymaster," another version of me said, this one looking barely out of his teens. "Someone like you who can open the doors between worlds." The implications hit me like a physical blow. "Are you saying I could—" "What? Let these alternate versions of myself into reality?" The older me nodded. "Not just us. Everything here. All the mights and could-have-beens. You have the power to make them real." I shook my head violently. No, I don't want that power. I just want to go home." "But don't you see?" a female version of myself said, stepping forward. "This is why you were drawn here, why the house chose you. You have the ability to reshape reality itself." The darkness around us pulsed, as if excited by the very idea. I felt the presence I'd sensed earlier growing stronger, more focused. "I don't care," I shouted. "I didn't ask for this. I don't want to reshape anything, I just want my life back." The crowd of my alternate selves began to press in, their voices rising in a cacophony of pleas and demands. "You have to help us. Make us real. Don't leave us here." I covered my ears, trying to block out their voices. "Stop it. Just stop." Suddenly, a new voice cut through the chaos. the featureless creature from before, the one that had called itself a gatekeeper. "Enough," it said, its mental voice somehow audible over the din. The alternate versions of myself fell silent, fading back into the darkness. The gatekeeper approached me, its featureless face somehow managing to convey concern. "You should not be here, Keymaster," it said. "This place is not for the living." I laughed bitterly. "Great. So now I'm in some kind of interdimensional land of the dead?" The gatekeeper shook its head. "Not dead. Unborn. Unlived. This is the realm of possibility, of potential. It is not meant for those who still have choices to make." I felt a glimmer of hope. "Then you can help me get out of here?" "I can show you the way," the gatekeeper replied. "But you must choose to take it, and you must understand that once you leave, you can never return to this place. The knowledge you've gained here is dangerous." I nodded eagerly. "I understand. I don't want to come back here. Ever." The gatekeeper regarded me silently for a moment, then extended its hand. "Take my hand, Keymaster, and whatever you do, do not let go." I grasped its hand, surprised by how solid and warm it felt. As soon as our hands connected, the darkness around us began to swirl and shift. I felt a pull, as if we were moving at incredible speed, though I couldn't see any change in our surroundings. "What's happening?" I shouted over the rushing in my ears. "We are traversing the void," the gatekeeper replied, its mental voice calm despite the chaos around us. "Stay focused on me, Keymaster. Do not listen to the voices." As if summoned by its words, I began to hear whispers all around us, fragments of conversations, screams, laughter, all the sounds of lives unlived, possibilities unrealized. I gripped the gatekeeper's hand tighter, squeezing my eyes shut against the onslaught. "Open your eyes, Keymaster," the gatekeeper commanded. "You must see the path to find your way back." Reluctantly, I opened my eyes. The darkness had given way to a swirling vortex of colors and shapes. I saw glimpses of other worlds, other realities flickering past us. "There," the gatekeeper said, pointing with its free hand. "Do you see it?" At first I saw nothing but the chaotic swirl of the vortex, but then I spotted it. A rectangle of warm, golden light. My door. "Yes," I shouted. "I see it." "Then go," the gatekeeper said, releasing my hand. "And remember, Keymaster, with great power comes great responsibility. The choices you make from here on out will shape more than just your own reality." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. With a final look at the gatekeeper, I dove towards the golden light. I tumbled through the door, landing hard on the floor of my home office. The door slammed shut behind me, and for a moment I just lay there gasping for breath. Slowly, I pushed myself to my feet, looking around the familiar space. Everything was as I had left it: my desk, my books, my computer. But I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The experience in the dark place had changed me. I had seen the vast tapestry of possibility, had glimpsed the power I supposedly wielded, and I was terrified. As I sank into my office chair, my mind reeling from what I'd experienced, I realized that my ordeal was far from over. I might have escaped the dark place, but its revelations would haunt me. And somewhere out there in the vast expanse of realities, other doors were waiting to be opened. I buried my face in my hands, overwhelmed by the weight of my newfound knowledge. "What am I supposed to do now?" I whispered to the empty room. Only silence answered me, but in that silence, I could almost hear the whisper of countless unlived lives, waiting for their chance to be. The encounter in the dark place had left me shaken to my core. Days passed in a blur as I grappled with the enormity of what I'd learned. The house, my house, was more than just a nexus of realities. It was a crucible of potential, a place where the very fabric of existence could be reshaped. I found myself avoiding the doors as much as possible, spending long hours in my bedroom, the one place that still felt somewhat safe. But even there, I couldn't escape the constant reminder of my predicament. The windows, once offering views of my quiet Chicago street, now showed only that maddening starry void. It was on one particularly bleak morning, as I sat on the edge of my bed contemplating the cosmic abyss beyond my window, that I saw it. A flicker, a momentary glimpse of normality, cars passing by, a neighbor walking their dog. I blinked, and it was gone, replaced once again by the endless expanse of stars. "No," I whispered, pressing my face against the cool glass. "Come back. Please come back." I waited, barely breathing, hoping to catch another glimpse of home. Minutes ticked by, but the void remained unchanging. Just as I was about to give up, it happened again. For a split second, I saw my world, my real world, superimposed over the starry backdrop. "Yes!" I shouted, pounding on the window. "I'm here. Can anyone see me?" But the vision faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving me once again staring into the abyss. I slumped to the floor, a mix of hope and despair warring in my chest. It wasn't much, but it was something. Proof that my world still existed, that there was still a chance to get back. Energized by this discovery, I began a methodical exploration of the house, searching for more of these momentary windows to reality. I found them in the most unexpected places: reflections in the bathroom mirror, the polished surface of the kitchen counter, even in the screen of my defunct television. I started keeping a journal, meticulously recording each occurrence, the time, the place, the duration of each glimpse. I was determined to find a pattern, a way to predict or even control these fleeting connections to my world. As I pored over my notes late one night, a thought struck me. I hurried to the living room, positioning myself in front of the large mirror above the fireplace. It was one of the places where I'd seen multiple glimpses. "Okay, Alex," I muttered to myself. "Let's see if this works." I closed my eyes, focusing all my concentration on the idea of home. I pictured my street, my neighbors, the bustling city beyond. When I opened my eyes, I gasped. The mirror showed not my reflection, but a clear view of my living room as it should be, connected to the real world. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. "Can anyone hear me?" In the mirror, I saw a figure walk past my living room window. It was Mrs. Abernathy from next door, out for her evening walk with her little terrier. I pounded on the mirror, shouting at the top of my lungs, "Mrs. Abernathy, help, I'm in here." But she passed by without a glance, oblivious to my cries. I realized with a sinking heart that while I could see and hear my world, it couldn't perceive me. As suddenly as it had appeared, the vision in the mirror faded, leaving me once again staring at my own haggard reflection. I slumped to the floor, tears of frustration streaming down my face. "Why?" I shouted at the empty room. "Why show me if I can't do anything about it?" "Because knowledge is power, Keymaster," a familiar voice responded. I spun around to find the gatekeeper standing in the doorway, its featureless face somehow conveying a sense of sympathy. "You," I said, scrambling to my feet. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" The gatekeeper tilted its head. "I am always here, Keymaster. In every reality, in every possibility. You simply needed to be ready to perceive me again." I laughed bitterly. "Ready? I'm losing my mind here. How is that ready?" "You're beginning to understand your power," the gatekeeper replied. "These glimpses of your home reality. You're creating them, whether you realize it or not." I shook my head in disbelief. "That's impossible. I'm not doing anything. They just happen." "Do they?" the gatekeeper asked. "Think, Keymaster. When do these glimpses occur most often? When you're intensely focused on the idea of home. Perhaps?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it again. The gatekeeper was right. The clearest, longest-lasting visions had always come when I was concentrating hardest on the idea of returning home. "But if I'm creating these glimpses," I said slowly, Why can't I make them last? Why can't I step through? The gatekeeper moved closer, its movements fluid and unsettling. Because you're still fighting your nature, Keymaster. You see your power as a curse, something to be feared and controlled. But it is a part of you, as integral as your heartbeat. I sank into an armchair, my mind reeling. So what am I supposed to do? Just accept that I'm some kind of interdimensional key? That I'll never have a normal life again? Normalcy is relative, the gatekeeper said. Your life will be what you make of it. But yes, you must accept your power. Embrace it. Only then will you truly be able to control it. I buried my face in my hands, overwhelmed. When I looked up again, the gatekeeper was gone, leaving me alone with my tumultuous thoughts. Over the next few days, I threw myself into experimenting with my newfound awareness. I practiced focusing my thoughts, trying to will the glimpses of home into existence. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but slowly, I began to feel a sense of control. It was a week after my conversation with the gatekeeper that I had my biggest breakthrough. I was standing in front of the living room mirror, concentrating with all my might on the image of my street. The vision swam into view, clearer and more stable than ever before. I saw my neighbor Tom watering his lawn. Acting on instinct, I called out to him, "Tom, Tom, can you hear me?" To my amazement, Tom paused, looking around in confusion. He couldn't see me, but he had heard something. My heart raced with excitement. "Tom, it's Alex. I'm trapped. I need help." Tom's brow furrowed. He took a step towards my house, peering at the windows. "Alex, is that you? Where are you, buddy?" "I'm here," I shouted, pounding on the mirror. "In the mirror! In the house!" But my excitement had broken my concentration. The vision began to waver and fade. I fought to hold onto it, but it slipped away like water through my fingers. Once again, I was left staring at my own reflection. "No," I cried, slumping against the wall. I was so close. But even in my disappointment, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had made contact, however briefly. It was proof that my world wasn't lost to me, that there was still a chance. Over the following days, I redoubled my efforts. I practiced for hours, honing my ability to create and maintain the glimpses of home. Slowly but surely, they became clearer, more stable. I could hold them for minutes at a time now, though any attempt at communication still caused them to dissipate. It was during one of these practice sessions that I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I was observing my street through the living room window when I noticed a strange shimmer in the air, right in front of my house. As I watched, the shimmer coalesced into a familiar form, the harbinger, the creature that had chased me through the house weeks ago. My blood ran cold as I realized the implications. The barriers between realities weren't just breaking down in my house. The effect was spreading to my home world. "Oh God," I whispered, watching as the harbinger prowled down the street, invisible to the oblivious residents of my neighborhood. What have I done? I knew then that I couldn't keep hiding in the house, practicing my newfound abilities in safety. The danger was real and growing. I had to find a way back, had to warn people about what was coming. With shaking hands, I began to gather supplies: food, water, a first aid kit. I didn't know where my next journey would take me, but I knew I had to be prepared. As I worked, I caught sight of my reflection in a mirror. I barely recognized the man staring back at me, gaunt, wild-eyed with weeks of unkempt beard growth. "You can do this, Alex," I told my reflection. "You have to." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. Then, with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since this whole ordeal began, I approached the front door. My hand hovered over the knob, trembling slightly. "Here goes nothing," I muttered. I turned the knob and stepped through, not knowing if I'd find my home, another alien world, or something far worse. But for the first time since this all began, I felt a glimmer of real hope. I wasn't just a victim of circumstance anymore. I was the Keymaster, and I was going to find my way home. no matter what horrors stood in my way. As the door closed behind me, I couldn't help but wonder, was I leaving my prison? Or had I just willingly stepped into a much larger, more dangerous one? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. My glimpses of home had given me a renewed purpose, and I would hold on to that no matter where this insane journey took me next. As I stepped through the front door, I braced myself for whatever alien landscape might greet me. But what I saw made me gasp in disbelief. I was standing in a hallway that looked eerily similar to my own house, yet subtly different. The wallpaper was a shade darker, the floorboards creaked in unfamiliar places, and there was a musty smell I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I called out cautiously. "Is anyone here?" Silence answered me, but I could feel a presence, or rather, multiple presences, in the air. The house felt lived in, occupied, unlike the empty shell my own home had become. I crept down the hallway, my nerves on edge. As I approached the living room, I heard voices, hushed, urgent whispers that fell silent as soon as I entered the room. The living room was occupied by a group of people, all of whom turned to stare at me with a mixture of fear and hope in their eyes. They were a diverse bunch, different ages, ethnicities, styles of dress. But they all shared the same haunted look I'd seen in my own reflection countless times. An older man with graying hair and a neatly trimmed beard stepped forward. "You're new," he said, his voice a mixture of wariness and curiosity. "When did you arrive?" I blinked, taken aback by the question. I just got here." "Who are you people? Where am I?" The man exchanged glances with the others before answering. "My name is David, and as for where you are, well, that's a complicated question. What's the last thing you remember before coming here?" I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I was in my house. I opened the front door and ended up here." A young woman with short, spiky hair and multiple piercings snorted. "Welcome to the club, newbie. We've all got a similar story." David shot her a reproachful look before turning back to me. "What's your name?" "Alex," I replied. "Alex Lambert." A murmur went through the group. David's eyes widened slightly. "Lambert? The architect?" I nodded, surprised. "Yes, how did you know?" David ran a hand through his hair, looking troubled. "Because we've been waiting for you, Alex, or someone like you. You see, we're all trapped here, in this in-between place, and we think you might be the key to getting us out." My heart sank. More talk of keys and gatekeepers and cosmic responsibilities. "Look," I said, holding up my hands, "I don't know what you've heard, but I'm just as lost as you are. I'm not some kind of savior." The spiky-haired woman stepped forward. "But you're a keymaster, aren't you? You can open doors to different realities." I stared at her, a chill running down my spine. "How do you know about that?" "Because we've seen others like you," David explained. "They pass through here sometimes, opening doors, changing things, but they never stay long and they can never take us with them." I looked around the room, taking in the desperate faces of the people gathered there. "How long have you all been here?" The answers varied wildly. David had been there for what he estimated was several years. The spiky-haired woman, who introduced herself as Zoe, had arrived a few months ago. Others had been there for weeks or days or time periods they couldn't quite define. "Time works differently here," an elderly woman explained. "It stretches and contracts. Sometimes it feels like we've been here for centuries, other times just minutes." As they shared their stories, I began to understand the horror of their situation. They were adrift in this liminal space, neither fully in one reality nor another. Some had seen glimpses of their homes like I had, but could never quite reach them. "But you," David said, his eyes boring into mine, "you might be different. You came here of your own volition, didn't you? You opened a door and chose to step through." I nodded slowly. "Yes, but I didn't know where I'd end up. I was just trying to find my way home." Zoe laughed bitterly. "Aren't we all?" As the day wore on, if it could be called a day in this timeless place, I learned more about my fellow castaways. David had been a physics professor, working on theories of multiple universes when he'd accidentally stumbled into this reality. Zoe had been experimenting with lucid dreaming and astral projection. Others had similar stories of pushing the boundaries of reality, only to find themselves trapped between worlds. "But how did you all end up in this specific place?" I asked. "This house that looks like mine?" David shrugged. "We have theories, but no concrete answers. This place, it seems to adapt to whoever is here. When I first arrived, it looked like my university office. For Zoe, it was her meditation room, but over time it settled into this form, perhaps because it's a combination of all our expectations of what home should look like. As night fell, or what passed for night in this strange place, the others retreated to various rooms in the house. David showed me to a spare bedroom that hadn't been there earlier in the day. "The house provides what we need," he explained. "Food in the kitchen, beds to sleep in, but it's all off somehow. The food never quite satisfies, sleep never fully refreshes. It's like we're living in a pale imitation of reality." As I lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind raced. Was this to be my fate as well? Trapped in this limbo, slowly forgetting what real life felt like, I must have dozed off eventually because I was startled awake by a commotion downstairs. I rushed to the living room to find the others gathered around a newcomer, a young man who looked even more bewildered than I had upon my arrival. "Where am I?" he was asking, his voice tinged with panic. "What is this place?" As David began the now familiar explanation, I noticed something odd. There was a shimmer in the air around the newcomer, a kind of distortion that reminded me of heat haze on a hot day. And beyond that shimmer, just for a moment, I thought I saw something else. Something dark and writhing with too many limbs and eyes. I blinked and the vision was gone. The newcomer was just a scared young man again. But the unease lingered. Over the next few days, or what felt like days, more people arrived. Each time I caught glimpses of something beyond their human appearance, flashes of otherworldly forms that disappeared as soon as I tried to focus on them. I confided in David about what I was seeing. He listened gravely, stroking his beard. "I was afraid of this," he said finally. "The barriers between realities are breaking down further. What we're seeing, they might not be human at all, Alex. They might be entities from other dimensions taking on forms that our minds can comprehend." The implications were terrifying. "But why?" I asked. "Why come here?" David's eyes met mine, and I saw real fear there. "Because this place is a crossroads, Alex. A nexus point between realities. And if the barriers fall completely..." He didn't need to finish the thought. I could imagine the horrors that might pour through if the walls between worlds crumbled entirely. "We need to find a way out," I said, my voice firm with newfound resolve. "Not just for us, but to warn our world about what's coming." David nodded. "That's why we've been waiting for someone like you, Alex. A keymaster who can not only open doors but hopefully close them as well." Over the next few days, or weeks, or months, time had become meaningless. We worked tirelessly. I practiced focusing my ability, trying to create stable portals back to our reality. The others helped as best they could, offering theories and support. But for every step forward, we seemed to take 2 steps back. The house itself seemed to be working against us, shifting and changing to thwart our efforts. And all the while, more people arrived, each one feeling less human than the last. It all came to a head one day, as I was attempting to open a portal in the living room mirror. I had managed to create a stable image of my street back home, and for the first time it felt solid, real. I could hear the sounds of traffic, smell the crisp autumn air. "I think this is it," I shouted excitedly. "I think we can go through." The others gathered around, hope shining in their eyes. But as David reached out to touch the mirror, a terrible screech filled the air. The house began to shake, pictures falling from walls, furniture sliding across the floor. And then I saw them, the true forms of many of our fellow castaways. The human disguises fell away, revealing creatures out of nightmare. Tentacles writhed, too many eyes blinked, mandibles clicked in anticipation. "Alex, hurry!" David yelled over the din. "Close the portal." But I couldn't. I stood frozen, torn between the horror unfolding around me and the tantalizing glimpse of home just beyond the mirror. In that moment of indecision, one of the creatures lunged for the portal. As soon as it touched the mirror's surface, there was a blinding flash of light and a thunderous crack. I was thrown backward, my head hitting the floor hard. When my vision cleared, the living room was in shambles. The mirror was shattered, its fragments scattered across the floor. The creatures were gone, along with many of the humans I had come to know. Only David, Zoe, and a handful of others remained, looking as shell-shocked as I felt. What happened?" I managed to ask as David helped me to my feet. He shook his head grimly. "You opened a door, Alex, but you weren't the only one waiting to go through it." The weight of what had just occurred hit me like a physical blow. In my desperation to get home, I had potentially unleashed untold horrors upon my world. As I stood there, surrounded by the remnants of our failed escape attempt, I realized that my journey was far from over. I was a keymaster, yes, but I had yet to master my abilities. And until I did, I was as much a danger to my world as I was its potential savior. "We need to fix this," I said, my voice hoarse but determined. "We need to find a way to close the doors for good." David nodded, a spark of hope rekindling in his eyes. "Yes, we do, and I think together we might just have a chance." As we began to plan our next move, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were now in a race against time. Somewhere out there, across the dimensions, the creatures we had inadvertently released were making their way through our world, and I was the only one who could stop them. The others were no longer just fellow castaways. They were now my allies, in a war for the fate of reality itself. And as I looked at their determined faces, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were trapped, yes, but we were no longer alone. And together, perhaps we could find a way to save not just ourselves, but all of existence. The failed escape attempt had left us all shaken, but it had also galvanized us into action. We knew now that we weren't just fighting for our own freedom, but for the safety of countless realities. In the days that followed, we worked tirelessly to understand and control my abilities as a keymaster. It was during one of these practice sessions that I first became aware of the entity. I was standing in front of the living room mirror, now replaced after the shattering incident, focusing intently on creating a stable portal. David and Zoe stood nearby, offering encouragement and suggestions. "Remember, Alex," David said, his voice calm and steady. "Don't force it. Let the power flow through you naturally." I nodded, taking a deep breath. As I concentrated, I felt the familiar surge of energy building within me. The surface of the mirror began to ripple like water, and then a chill ran down my spine. For just a moment, I saw something in the mirror that wasn't my reflection. A darkness, deeper than any I'd ever seen, with pinpricks of light like distant stars. And in that darkness, something moved. I stumbled backward, breaking my concentration. The mirror returned to normal, but the unease lingered. "What happened?" Zoe asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You looked like you saw a ghost." I shook my head, trying to find the words to describe what I'd seen. Not a ghost. Something else. Something big. David's expression grew grave. "Tell us exactly what you saw, Alex." As I recounted the experience, I saw David and Zoe exchange worried glances. "I was afraid of this," David muttered, running a hand through his graying hair. "Afraid of what?" I demanded. "What aren't you telling me?" David sighed heavily. "We've all had experiences, glimpses of something vast and incomprehensible. We didn't want to worry you until we were sure." Zoe nodded, her usual bravado subdued. At first, we thought it was just a side effect of being trapped between realities, but now we think it might be something more. David finished. An entity of some kind, existing in the spaces between worlds. I felt a chill at his words. What kind of entity? We don't know, Zoe admitted. But whatever it is, it's powerful. And I think it might be aware of us. Over the next few days, I became increasingly aware of the entity's presence. It was never overt, never directly visible, but I could feel it watching. In the corner of my eye, in the shadows of a room, in the ripple of a reflection, it was always there, just out of sight. The others felt it too. Our little group grew tense, jumpy. Arguments broke out over nothing. More than once I caught people staring blankly into space, as if listening to something only they could hear. It was about a week after my first glimpse of the entity that things escalated. I was alone in the kitchen trying to force down another meal of the bland, unsatisfying food the house provided. As I stared at my plate, the shadows in the room seemed to deepen. A voice whispered in my ear, so close I could almost feel breath on my skin. Keymaster. I jerked upright, spinning around, but there was no one there. Who's there? I called out, my voice shaking. Show yourself. The shadows writhed, and for a moment I thought I saw a shape forming. But before it could coalesce, David burst into the room. Alex, are you all right? I heard you shouting. The shadow snapped back to normal. I stood there, heart pounding, unsure of what I'd just experienced. I think it spoke to me, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. David's face paled. The entity? What did it say? It called me Keymaster, I replied, the word sending a shiver down my spine. David grabbed my arm, his grip tight with urgency. We need to talk to the others. Now. We gathered everyone in the living room, the tension palpable as I recounted what had happened. Zoe paced restlessly as I spoke, while the others sat in stunned silence. This changes everything, David said once I'd finished. If the entity is actively trying to communicate. But why? Zoe interrupted. What does it want with Alex? An older woman named Margaret, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Isn't it obvious? It wants what we all want, a way out, and Alex might be its ticket. The thought sent a chill through the room. If this entity, this vast, incomprehensible thing, saw me as a means of escape. We can't let that happen, David said firmly. We have no idea what this entity is capable of, or what its intentions are. If it were to enter our reality, or any reality. He didn't need to finish the thought. We could all imagine the catastrophic consequences. So what do we do? I asked, feeling the weight of responsibility settling heavily on my shoulders. We need to understand it, David replied. And to do that, we need to communicate with it. Controlled, carefully monitored communication. The idea was met with a mix of fear and excitement. On one hand, the prospect of intentionally reaching out to this entity was terrifying. On the other, it was the first real lead we'd had in ages. We spent the next few days preparing. David and some of the others with scientific backgrounds set up a makeshift laboratory in one of the spare rooms. They cobbled together monitoring equipment from whatever the house provided, though how much use it would be against an interdimensional entity was anyone's guess. When the day came for our first attempt at communication, the atmosphere was tense. I sat in the center of the room, surrounded by the others and their jury-rigged equipment. Remember, David said, his voice tight with anxiety. At the first sign of trouble, we abort. Don't take any unnecessary risks. I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. Here goes nothing, I muttered, and closed my eyes. I focused on the feeling I'd had in the kitchen, the sense of vast, watchful presence. At first, there was nothing. Then, slowly, I became aware of a change in the air. The room seemed to grow colder, the lights dimming despite no one touching the switch. Alex? Zoe's voice sounded distant, muffled. Are you okay? I tried to respond, but my voice wouldn't work. The darkness behind my eyelids deepened, became absolute. And in that darkness, something stirred. Keymaster, the voice from before whispered, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You seek us? Yes, I thought, unsure if I was speaking aloud or not. What are you? A sensation of vast amusement washed over me. We are the in-between, the void, the space between spaces. Images flashed through my mind, endless expanses of darkness punctuated by bursts of creation, realities birthing and dying in the blink of an eye. Why are you here? I managed to ask, overwhelmed by the cosmic scale of what I was experiencing. We are always here, Keymaster, in every gap, every silence, every moment between moments. But now we grow hungry. The word hungry sent a spike of fear through me. Hungry for what? Another wave of amusement, tinged with something darker. For reality, Keymaster. For existence itself. I felt a pressure building in my head, as if the entity was trying to push its way into my mind. I fought against it, trying to maintain some semblance of control. What do you want from me? I gasped, feeling as if I was drowning in the entity's vastness. You are the key, Keymaster. The bridge between what is and what could be. With you, we could feast on endless realities. The pressure increased, and I saw visions of worlds being consumed, realities collapsing into the void. And through it all, I saw myself, opening door after door, unleashing this cosmic horror upon unsuspecting universes. No, I shouted, both mentally and physically. I won't help you. I felt a surge of anger from the entity so powerful it made me cry out in pain. You cannot resist us, Keymaster. We are eternal. We are inevitable. The darkness pressed in, threatening to smother me. I could feel my sense of self slipping away, being absorbed into the entity's vast consciousness. Just as I thought I would be lost forever, I heard voices, distant at first, then growing stronger. My friends calling my name, anchoring me to reality. With a tremendous effort, I opened my eyes. The room came into focus slowly. David and Zoe leaning over me, concern etched on their faces, the others hovering anxiously in the background. Alex, thank God, Zoe breathed. We thought we'd lost you. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw as if I'd been screaming. David helped me sit up, pressing a glass of water into my hand. What happened? He asked urgently. What did you see? As I recounted my experience, I saw the color drain from their faces. The implications were staggering, an entity of cosmic proportions, with the desire and potentially the power to consume entire realities. This is worse than we could have imagined, David said, his voice shaking. If this entity were to break through into any reality, it would be the end of everything, I finished, the weight of the situation settling over me like a shroud. We spent the rest of the day in grim discussion, trying to come to terms with what we'd learned. The entity was a threat beyond anything we'd conceived of, and I was the key it wanted to use to unlock the doors to countless realities. As night fell, or what passed for night in our timeless prison, I found myself standing alone before the living room mirror. My reflection looked haggard, eyes sunken with the knowledge of what we faced. But as I stared, I saw something else in the mirror, a flicker of movement, a deepening of shadows. The entity was still there, watching, waiting. I won't help you, I said to my reflection, to the presence I could feel lurking just out of sight. I'll find a way to stop you, no matter what it takes. For a moment, I thought I saw my reflection smile, a cruel, inhuman expression that sent chills down my spine. Then it was gone, leaving me alone with my determination and my fear. As I turned away from the mirror, I knew that our struggle had entered a new phase. We weren't just fighting for our freedom anymore. We were fighting for the survival of all realities, all possibilities, and somehow I had to find the strength to stand against a being that existed beyond the bounds of comprehension. The entity had revealed itself, and in doing so had transformed our imprisonment into a battleground. The war for reality itself had begun, and I was the unwilling linchpin upon which everything balanced. As I rejoined the others, I could only hope that together, we would find a way to close the doors for good and banish the entity back to the void where it belonged. The revelation of the entity's true nature and intentions had left us all reeling. For days we struggled to come to terms with the cosmic horror we faced. But as the initial shock wore off, a grim determination set in. We had to find a way to stop this thing, to protect not just our reality but all realities. It was during one of our strategy sessions that I first noticed it. We were gathered in the living room, discussing potential ways to strengthen the barriers between dimensions, when my eyes were drawn to the crown molding along the ceiling. "Hey," I said, interrupting David mid-sentence. "Has that always been there?" The others followed my gaze, confusion evident on their faces. "What do you mean, Alex?" Zoe asked. "It's just molding." I shook my head, standing up to get a closer look. "No, look at the pattern. Doesn't it seem odd to you?" As an architect, I'd always had an eye for detail, especially when it came to buildings, and now that I was really looking, I realized that the molding wasn't just decorative. There was a pattern to it, a complexity that seemed out of place in this otherwise unremarkable house. David joined me, squinting up at the ceiling. "I see what you mean. It's almost like writing," I finished for him, "or some kind of code." That observation sparked something in all of us. Suddenly, we were seeing the house with new eyes. What we had dismissed as ordinary architectural features now took on new significance. We split up, each taking a different area of the house to examine closely. I focused on the living room, scrutinizing every detail with an architect's precision. The more I looked, the more I found. The wallpaper pattern, when viewed from a certain angle, seemed to form intricate, swirling symbols. The floorboards, which I had always thought were placed randomly, actually formed a complex geometric pattern. Even the placement of the furniture seemed deliberate, creating lines and angles that felt significant, though I couldn't yet say why. "Guys!" Zoe's excited voice called from upstairs. "You need to see this." We rushed up to find her in one of the bedrooms, staring intently at the window. "Look at the glass," she said, pointing. "When the light hits it just right," I gasped. In the refraction of the light, I could see symbols similar to those in the wallpaper downstairs, shimmering and shifting as if alive. "It's everywhere," Margaret murmured, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. "The whole house is covered in these messages." We spent the next few hours documenting everything we could find. David, ever the scientist, started a catalog of the symbols and patterns we discovered, but understanding their meaning proved to be a much greater challenge. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," David said, frustration evident in his voice as we regrouped in the kitchen. "Some elements remind me of mathematical equations, others of ancient languages, but as a whole, it's beyond human understanding." I finished for him. The realization hit me hard. Because it wasn't made by humans, was it? This house, this whole place, it was created by the entity. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications of that statement sank in. "But why?" Zoe asked, breaking the silence. "Why create this elaborate puzzle box of a house?" I ran my hand along the kitchen counter, feeling the subtle patterns etched into its surface. Maybe it's a test, or a trap." David nodded slowly. "Or both. The entity called you a keymaster, Alex. Perhaps this house is designed to train you, to shape you into whatever it needs you to be." The thought sent a chill down my spine. Had every moment here been orchestrated by that vast, hungry consciousness? Were we playing into its hands even now? "So what do we do?" Margaret asked, her voice small and frightened. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "We keep looking. We try to understand. Knowledge is power, right? Maybe if we can decipher these symbols, we can find a way to fight back. With renewed purpose, we threw ourselves into the task of documenting and analyzing every inch of the house. Days blended together as we worked, sleep becoming a rare and precious commodity. I found myself spending hours staring at the patterns, letting my architect's eye try to make sense of the impossible geometries. Sometimes I felt like I was on the verge of understanding, only to have comprehension slip away like smoke through my fingers. It was during one of these marathon sessions, as I sat cross-legged on the living room floor surrounded by sketches and notes, that I had a breakthrough. "Holy shit," I whispered, my eyes widening as the realization hit me. "What is it?" David asked, looking up from his own work. I scrambled to my feet, suddenly energized. "It's not just symbols or codes. It's blueprints." The others gathered around as I explained, pointing out elements in the patterns that corresponded to architectural features. "Look, see how this line here matches the angle of the roof? And these curves, they're the same as the staircase. It's a blueprint of the house, but more. It's showing dimensions we can't see." Zoe leaned in, her brow furrowed. "What do you mean, dimensions we can't see?" I struggled to put it into words. "It's like, imagine if you could see a cross-section of not just the house but the space around it. The void between realities. That's what these blueprints are showing." David's eyes lit up with understanding. "Of course. The house isn't just a building, it's a machine, a device for traversing or perhaps even manipulating the barriers between dimensions." The excitement of discovery was tempered by the chilling implications of what we'd found. If the house was indeed a machine, then we were inside it, part of it. "So how do we use this information?" Margaret asked, giving voice to the question on all our minds. I ran my hand through my hair, my mind racing. If I can understand these blueprints fully, maybe I can figure out how to control the house, to use it to our advantage instead of the entities. Or to destroy it. Zoe added grimly. We worked with renewed vigor. Our previous cataloging efforts now focused on trying to create a complete blueprint of the house and its extra-dimensional properties. As we worked, strange things began to happen. Rooms would shift when we weren't looking, new doors appearing and old ones vanishing. The symbols in the wallpaper seemed to move of their own accord, rearranging themselves as if trying to communicate. "It knows," David said one day, his voice tight with stress. "The entity knows we're onto something." I nodded grimly. All the more reason to work faster. But the house seemed to be actively working against us now. Tools would go missing, notes would become scrambled or simply vanish. More than once I found myself in rooms I didn't recognize, having to navigate back to familiar areas as if the house was trying to isolate us. The pressure was getting to all of us. Tempers flared, paranoia set in. More than once I caught others staring at me with a mix of hope and fear, as if unsure whether I was their savior or their doom. It all came to a head one night, or what passed for night in our timeless prison. I was in the attic, which had become my de facto workspace, poring over the latest set of blueprints I'd decoded. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped dramatically, the shadows deepened, and I felt the now familiar presence of the entity pressing in around me. "Keymaster," its voice whispered, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Why do you resist? We offer you power beyond imagining." I stood up, my fists clenched at my sides. "I don't want your power. I want you to leave us alone." A sensation of vast amusement washed over me. "You cannot stop what is inevitable. The barriers weaken. Soon we will feast." "Not if I can help it," I growled, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of manifestation. The shadows writhed, and for a moment I thought I saw a shape forming in the corner of the room. But before it could fully materialize, the door burst open. Zoe stood there, a makeshift weapon in her hand. "Alex, are you okay? We heard voices." The presence of the entity vanished as quickly as it had come, leaving only a lingering chill in the air. I slumped against the wall, suddenly exhausted. "It was here, Zoe, the entity. It's getting stronger." She helped me to my feet, her eyes wide with concern. Did it hurt you? I shook my head. No, but I think it was trying to tempt me, to get me to give in. We made our way downstairs where the others were waiting anxiously. As I recounted what had happened, I could see the fear in their eyes. The walls were covered in swirling symbols that seemed to move and shift as I watched, and in the center of it all was a structure I'd never seen before. It looked like a door frame, but it didn't seem to lead anywhere. It just stood there, a rectangle of emptiness that somehow felt more real than anything else in the room. As I approached it, I felt a surge of energy. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and I realized with a start that I could read them now. The blueprint, the code, the message, it all made sense. My God, I whispered, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of knowledge. I understand. The house wasn't just a prison or a machine, it was a key, and I finally knew how to use it. As the knowledge settled into my mind, I felt a mix of exhilaration and terror. I had the power to end this, to close the doors between realities permanently. But the cost would be enormous. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew I had to do. "I'm sorry, everyone," I murmured, though I knew they couldn't hear me. "But this is the only way." With trembling hands, I reached out towards the impossible doorframe. It was time to face the entity on its own turf, time to end this one way or another. As my fingers touched the frame, I felt a surge of power. The room around me dissolved, and I found myself falling into the void between realities. The final confrontation was about to begin, and the fate of all existence hung in the balance. As I stumbled through yet another door, my mind reeling from the constant shifts in reality, a terrible suspicion began to take root. The architectural anomalies I'd noticed weren't just coincidences. They were clues to a larger, more horrifying truth. I found myself in what appeared to be an abandoned library, dust motes dancing in the dim light filtering through grimy windows. The shelves towered around me, filled with ancient tomes and crumbling scrolls. My fingers trembled as I pulled a book from the nearest shelf, its leather binding cracking as I opened it. "No, it can't be," I whispered, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. The pages were filled with diagrams and equations, describing the very phenomenon I was experiencing. Multiverse theory, dimensional gateways, nexus points. It was all there, laid out in terrifying detail. As I flipped through the pages, a slip of paper fell to the floor. I bent to retrieve it, my blood running cold as I recognized my own handwriting. It was a note I had no memory of writing. "The house is the key. It's not just affected, it's the source. God help me. What have I done? A sound behind me made me whirl around, my heart pounding. A figure emerged from the shadows, an elderly man with wild, unkempt hair and eyes that held a gleam of madness. "So, you've finally begun to understand," he croaked, a humorless smile twisting his lips. I took a step back, clutching the book to my chest. "Who are you? What do you know about this?" He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "I'm you, Alex. Or rather, I'm what you'll become if you don't find a way to end this." My mind reeled at his words. "That's impossible. You can't be—" "Me? You? Us?" he interrupted, stepping closer. "In this place, the impossible is our reality. Time, space, identity. It all blurs together in the nexus." I shook my head, trying to deny his words even as a part of me recognized the truth in them. "The nexus? You mean my house?" He nodded gravely. "Our house. The focal point where all realities converge. We built it, Alex. In our arrogance, we thought we could harness the power of the multiverse." "But why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why would we do something so dangerous?" The old man, my future self, sighed heavily. "Power, knowledge, the promise of unlimited potential. We were blind to the consequences, to the chaos we would unleash." I sank into a nearby chair, my legs no longer able to support me, so every time I close a door— "You're tearing the fabric of reality a little more," he finished. "Each journey weakens the barriers between worlds. If we don't find a way to close the nexus, to seal off our house from the multiverse, everything will collapse." The magnitude of the situation crashed over me like a tidal wave. "How? How do we stop it?" He shook his head, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and despair. "I've been searching for years, jumping from reality to reality, trying to find the answer. But time works differently here. For me, it's been decades. For you, mere days since it all began." I stood up, a new determination filling me. "Then we'll search together. There has to be a way to fix this, to close the nexus and set things right." The old man's expression softened slightly. "Your optimism. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like. But be warned, Alex. The path ahead is fraught with dangers you can't even imagine, and the cost of success may be higher than you're willing to pay." "I don't care," I said firmly. "Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I have to." He nodded slowly. "Then listen carefully. The nexus, our house, it's not just a physical place. It's a manifestation of our consciousness, our will. To close it, you'll need to find the original door, the first gateway we opened." "And where is this door?" I asked, dreading the answer. His eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of fear and resolve. "At the heart of your deepest fears, in the darkest corner of your mind. To find it, you'll have to confront everything you've ever run from, every terror you've ever known." I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. "And if I find it? What then?" "Close it," he said simply. "But know this. Closing the original door means cutting yourself off from your home reality forever. You'll be trapped in whatever world you end up in, never able to return to the life you knew." The weight of his words settled over me like a shroud. The price of saving reality would be my own existence as I knew it. But what choice did I have? "I understand," I said quietly. "Thank you. Me." As I turned to leave, to continue my journey through the twisted corridors of the Nexus, the old man called out one last time. "Alex, good luck. And whatever happens, whatever horrors you face, remember, you're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for every reality, every version of ourselves scattered across the multiverse. Don't let us down." With those ominous words ringing in my ears, I stepped through the library door, steeling myself for the trials ahead. The Nexus theory had given me answers, but it had also revealed the true scope of my nightmare. Now the real challenge began, finding the original door and gathering the courage to close it. no matter the cost. The realization hit me like a physical blow, leaving me gasping for air in the oppressive atmosphere of yet another alien world. Time wasn't just a concept here in this maze of realities. It was a tangible force, and it was running out. I stood on a rocky outcrop, overlooking a vast purple ocean that churned and boiled beneath a sky streaked with green lightning. The air tasted metallic, and each breath burned my lungs. But it wasn't the hostile environment that filled me with dread. It was the unmistakable sense of wrongness that permeated everything. "This isn't supposed to exist," I muttered, my words carried away by the howling wind. "These realities, they're bleeding into each other." As if in response to my observation, the horizon flickered, momentarily replaced by a cityscape of impossible geometry, before snapping back to the alien seascape. The boundaries between worlds were growing thinner, more unstable with each passing moment. I closed my eyes, trying to center myself and make sense of the chaos. When I opened them, I was no longer alone on the rocky outcrop. A figure stood beside me, translucent and shimmering like a mirage. It was a woman, her features blurred and constantly shifting, as if she couldn't decide which version of herself to be. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She turned to face me, her eyes pools of swirling galaxies. "I am many, and I am none. A fragment of consciousness, a whisper of possibility. But you can call me Echo." I shook my head, struggling to comprehend. "Are you real?" Echo's laugh was like tinkling glass. "As real as anything in this fracturing multiverse. I'm a remnant, Alex. A piece of someone who was torn apart when the walls between realities began to crumble." A chill ran down my spine. "Is that what's happening? The multiverse is falling apart?" She nodded solemnly. "Your actions have set off a chain reaction. Each door you open, each reality you visit, weakens the cosmic framework that separates the infinite possibilities." "But I never meant to," I began, guilt and horror washing over me. Echo held up a hand, silencing me. "Intent is irrelevant. The damage is done. But it's not too late to fix it, if you're willing to pay the price." I squared my shoulders, determination overriding my fear. "Whatever it takes. I can't let this continue." "Then listen carefully," Echo said, her form flickering like a faulty hologram. "You need to find the nexus point, the original door that started all of this. But time is not on your side." As if to emphasize her point, the sky above us ripped open, revealing a dizzying kaleidoscope of other worlds before knitting itself back together. The very fabric of reality was starting to fray. "How long do I have?" I asked, dreading the answer. Echo's expression was grim. "Hours, maybe less. With each passing moment, the boundaries weaken further. Soon, the collapse will reach a critical point, and not even closing the original door will be enough to stop it." My mind raced, trying to process the enormity of the task before me. "But how can I find this door? I've been jumping through realities without any control." "Focus, Alex," Echo urged. "The door is a part of you, a manifestation of your deepest fears and greatest desires. It's hidden in the one place you've been afraid to look, within yourself." I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. When I opened them, the alien landscape had changed. We now stood in a long, dark corridor lined with countless doors. "Your mind has brought us here," Echo explained. "Each of these doors represents a possibility, a path you could take, but only one leads to the nexus point." I stepped forward, my hand hovering over the nearest doorknob. "How will I know which is the right one?" Echo's voice was fading, her form growing more transparent. "Trust your instincts. And remember, the deeper you go, the more dangerous it becomes. The guardians of your subconscious won't give up their secrets easily." With that ominous warning, she vanished, leaving me alone in the corridor of my mind. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "Okay, Alex," I muttered. "Time to face your demons." I opened the first door, stepping into a swirling vortex of memory and emotion. Scenes from my past flashed before my eyes. Childhood traumas, failed relationships, missed opportunities. Each one stung, but I pushed through, knowing these surface-level regrets weren't what I was looking for. Door after door I opened, delving deeper into the recesses of my psyche. With each threshold crossed, the experiences became more intense, more surreal. I relived my greatest triumphs and my most crushing defeats, faced nightmarish manifestations of my insecurities, and glimpsed tantalizing visions of roads not taken. Time seemed to lose all meaning as I wandered through the labyrinth of my mind. But even as I pressed on, I could feel the urgency building. The walls of the corridor began to warp and twist, always searching, never finding. This wasteland is all that's left, the last fragment of a collapsed multiverse. I shook my head, refusing to accept his words. No, that's not going to happen. I'm going to find the original door and close it. I'll stop this. My older self smiled sadly. I thought the same thing once. But time is a tricky thing in the spaces between worlds. What feels like hours to you now could stretch into an eternity. As if to punctuate his warning, the ground beneath our feet shuddered. In the distance, I saw entire sections of the icy plain simply blink out of existence, leaving behind a void of absolute nothingness. It's starting, my older self said grimly. The final collapse. Soon there will be nothing left. No realities, no possibilities, just the void. Panic clawed at my throat. Then help me. If you're really me, you must know where the original door is. He regarded me for a long moment, his eyes searching mine. Finally, he nodded. I do. But reaching it, that's the true test. Are you prepared to face the darkest parts of yourself, Alex? To confront the truth of why you built that house in the first place? I clenched my fists, pushing down the fear that threatened to overwhelm me. I have to be. The entire multiverse is at stake. Very well, my older self said. He raised his hand, and the icy landscape around us shimmered and dissolved. We now stood in a familiar place, my childhood home. But it was wrong, distorted. The walls seemed to pulse with a sickly light, and shadows danced in the corners, taking on half-formed shapes that set my teeth on edge. This is where it all began, my older self explained. The root of our obsession with doors, with escape. As he spoke, I heard shouting from the next room, my parents arguing. The sound sent a jolt of long-buried pain through me. I don't want to be here, I whispered, my voice trembling. My older self's expression was sympathetic but unyielding. You have to be. This is the path to the original door. Every fear you've run from, every pain you've buried, you need to face it all. I nodded, squaring my shoulders. Then let's do this. We moved through the twisted version of my childhood home, each room revealing another buried memory, another suppressed emotion. I relived the day my dog died, the crushing loneliness of being the new kid in school, the first time I realized my parents' marriage was falling apart. With each step, the house grew more unstable. Walls buckled and warped, floors tilted at impossible angles. The very air seemed to thicken, making each breath a struggle. We're running out of time, my older self urged. The original door is closed, but you have to open it yourself. I can't do it for you. We rounded a corner, and there it was, a door I recognized all too well. It was the door to my old bedroom, but it radiated a palpable sense of power and menace. I reached for the handle, but my hand passed right through it. What's happening? I asked, panic rising in my voice. My older self placed a hand on my shoulder. This is your test, Alex. The door will only become solid when you're ready to face what's on the other side. You have to confront the truth. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think. Why had I become an architect? Why had I been so obsessed with creating the perfect house, the perfect doors? The answer came in a rush of clarity that left me gasping. Control, I whispered. It was all about control. I couldn't control what happened in this house, couldn't escape the pain, so I decided to create my own spaces, my own exits. As I spoke, I felt something shift. When I opened my eyes, the door handle was solid beneath my fingers. "Well done," my older self said softly. "Now, open it. But be warned, what's on the other side will test you like nothing before." Taking a deep breath, I turned the handle and pushed the door open. A maelstrom of swirling energy greeted me, a vortex of pure possibility. At its center floated a single, ordinary-looking door, the nexus point, the original door that had started it all. "There it is," my older self shouted over the roar of the vortex. "Close it and you'll reset the multiverse, but remember the cost." I nodded, understanding all too well. Closing this door meant cutting myself off from my home reality forever. I'd be trapped in whatever world I ended up in, never able to return to the life I knew. But as I looked around at the disintegrating remnants of reality, I knew I had no choice. With a final, determined step, I plunged into the vortex, fighting against the currents of possibility that threatened to tear me apart. My hand closed around the handle of the original door. As I began to push it shut, I caught one last glimpse of my older self. He smiled, a look of peace settling over his features as he began to fade away. "Good luck, Alex," his voice echoed in my mind. "And remember, every ending is just another beginning." With a final surge of effort, I slammed the door shut. There was a moment of absolute silence, then a deafening roar as the multiverse rearranged itself around me. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I found myself lying on unfamiliar grass under an alien sky. The door was gone, and with it any chance of returning to my old life. But as I sat up, looking out at the strange new world before me, I felt a profound sense of relief. The race against time was over. I had won, even if victory came at a great personal cost. Now a new journey was about to begin, one of discovery, adaptation, and perhaps, eventually, peace. As I took my first steps into this new reality, I couldn't help but smile. After all, as my older self had said, every ending is just another beginning. The concept of the original door had become an obsession, a beacon of hope in the twisted labyrinth of realities I found myself trapped in. As I stumbled through yet another portal, I felt a shift in the air, a charge of electricity that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I emerged into a vast, cavernous space. The walls, floor, and ceiling seemed to be made of shifting, translucent energy, pulsing with an otherworldly light. And there, suspended in the center of this cosmic void, was a door. Just a simple, wooden door, weathered and worn, yet radiating an aura of immense power. "This is it," I whispered, my voice echoing in the strange space. "The original door." As I took a step towards it, a figure materialized before me, blocking my path. It was a mirror image of myself, but distorted, its features constantly shifting and blurring. "Stop," it said, its voice a dissonant chorus of my own. "You don't understand what you're doing." I clenched my fists, steeling myself. "I understand perfectly. This door is the key to fixing everything, to stopping the collapse of the multiverse." The entity laughed, a chilling sound that reverberated through the chamber. "Fix? You think closing this door will fix anything? It will only trap you, cut you off from everything you've ever known." "If that's the price to save reality, I'll pay it," I shot back, trying to sidestep the creature. It moved with impossible speed, always staying between me and the door. "Will you? Are you really prepared to sacrifice everything? Your home, your family, your very identity?" I faltered, doubt creeping in. I have to. There's no other choice." The entity's form rippled, taking on the appearance of my mother. "Alex, honey, you don't have to do this. Come home, we miss you." My heart clenched at the sight, but I shook my head. "You're not real. None of this is real." The figure shifted again, this time becoming my best friend. "Dude, this is crazy. Let's just grab a beer and forget about all this multiverse nonsense." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the temptation. No, I won't be swayed by illusions. When I opened my eyes, the entity had reverted to its shifting, mirror-like form. Its expression was a mixture of anger and desperation. "You fool," it hissed. "You have no idea what closing that door will do. The consequences are better than the complete collapse of reality," I interrupted. "Now get out of my way." I lunged forward, attempting to push past the entity. It grabbed me, its touch burning cold. We grappled, locked in a struggle that felt like it transcended physical reality. "Why are you fighting me?" I grunted, pushing against its impossible strength. The entity's face flickered rapidly, cycling through countless versions of myself. "Because I am you. All the versions of you that will cease to exist if you close that door. All the possibilities, the potential futures, gone in an instant." I hesitated, the weight of its words sinking in. "But if I don't close it, everything will be destroyed. All realities, all versions of me, they'll all be gone anyway." The entity's grip loosened slightly. Perhaps, or perhaps there's another way, a way to harness the power of the multiverse instead of shutting it off. For a moment I was tempted. The idea of unlimited potential, of being able to explore every possible version of my life, was intoxicating. But then I remembered the collapsing realities, the blending of worlds that threatened to tear apart the very fabric of existence. I thought of all the people I'd met on my journey, all the lives at stake. "No," I said firmly, wrenching myself free from the entity's grasp. "There's no time to find another way. This ends now." With a burst of strength I didn't know I possessed, I shoved the entity aside and lunged for the door. My hand closed around the handle, cool metal against my palm. The entity let out a wail of despair. "You don't know what you're doing. Once you close that door, there's no going back. You'll be trapped, lost in a reality not your own, forever." I turned to face my distorted reflection, my resolve hardening. "I know, but it's a price I'm willing to pay to save everything else." As I began to push the door closed, the chamber around us started to shake. Cracks appeared in the energy walls, reality itself seeming to buckle under the strain. The entity made one last, desperate lunge for me. "Wait, you don't have to do this alone. Let me help you, guide you. Together, we could—" "No," I said, my voice calm despite the chaos erupting around us. "This is my responsibility, my choice." With a final monumental effort, I slammed the door shut. There was a moment of absolute silence, then a deafening roar as the multiverse rearranged itself around me. The entity let out a scream that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Its form began to dissolve, breaking apart into motes of light that swirled around the chamber. "What's happening?" I shouted over the din. The entity's voice was fading, becoming distant. "The reset. It's begun. Realities are separating, timelines re-establishing themselves. But you're outside it all now. Adrift." As the light engulfed me, I felt a profound sense of loss, but also relief. Whatever happened next, whatever reality I found myself in, I knew I had made the right choice. The last thing I heard before consciousness slipped away was the entity's final whisper. "Good luck, Alex. In a way, I'll miss us." Then everything went white, and I felt myself falling into the unknown, the original door and all it represented left behind forever. The weight of my decisions hung heavy on my shoulders as I trudged through yet another alien landscape. This world was a barren wasteland of ash and stone, the sky a sickly green that cast everything in an eerie glow. But it wasn't the hostile environment that filled me with dread. It was the faces that haunted my every step. I saw her again, just at the edge of my vision. Sarah, the young girl I'd met in a reality of endless forests. Her eyes, once bright with wonder, now accused me silently. "I'm sorry," I whispered, my voice carried away by the acrid wind. I had no choice. The memory of our last conversation replayed in my mind, as vivid and painful as the moment it happened. You're leaving? Sarah had asked, her small hand clutching mine. But you promised to help me find my way home. I'd knelt down, trying to meet her eyes. I know, Sarah, and I'm so sorry. But I have to keep moving. If I don't find the original door, all the realities, including yours, will collapse. Then take me with you, she'd pleaded, tears welling up in her eyes. I can't, I'd replied, my heart breaking. It's too dangerous, and I'm not sure what will happen when I finally close the door. You'll be safer here. Her face had crumpled, a look of betrayal that would haunt me forever. You're just like all the others, you're abandoning me. I shook my head, trying to dispel the memory. Sarah wasn't the only one I'd left behind. There was Marcus, the scientist from a world of advanced technology, who'd been on the verge of understanding the nature of the interdimensional rifts, and Alara, the warrior queen fighting to save her dying planet. Each of them had trusted me, had believed in my mission, and each of them I'd had to abandon in my relentless pursuit of the original door. You did what you had to do, a familiar voice said from behind me. I turned to see Echo, the fragmented consciousness I'd encountered before. Her form was even more unstable now, flickering in and out of existence like a faulty hologram. Did I? I asked bitterly. Or am I just telling myself that to ease my conscience? Echo's expression was sympathetic but firm. The stakes are bigger than any one person, any one reality. You know this, Alex. I kicked at the ashen ground, sending up a cloud of dust. Knowing doesn't make it any easier. These people trusted me, Echo. They needed me. And you're trying to save them all, she countered, even if they don't understand it. As if summoned by our conversation, more spectral figures appeared around us. I recognized them all, every person I'd met and left behind on my journey. Marcus stepped forward, his usually calm demeanor replaced by anger. You said you'd help me complete my research. We were so close to a breakthrough. I started but was cut off by Alara's accusing voice. My people are dying, Alex. You swore an oath to stand with us in battle. One by one, they hurled their accusations at me. Their words cut deep, each one a reminder of the promises I'd broken, the hopes I'd dashed. I fell to my knees, overwhelmed by guilt. I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt any of you. I'm trying to save everyone. Are you? A new voice cut through the chorus of accusations. I looked up to see an older version of myself, his face lined with years of hardship. Or are you just running away, too afraid to form real connections? I staggered to my feet, facing my older self. That's not true. I care about all of them. That's why this is so hard. My older self laughed bitterly. Is it? Or is it hard because you know, deep down, that you're using this quest as an excuse? An excuse to never have to commit, to never have to face your own fears and inadequacies? His words struck a chord, forcing me to confront truths I'd been avoiding. Had I been using the search for the original door as a way to escape my own issues? Echo placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch barely perceptible. Don't listen to him, Alex. He's a manifestation of your doubts, your fears. You know why you're doing this. I took a deep breath, looking around at the accusing faces surrounding me. You're right. I have made sacrifices. I've left people behind, broken promises, and it kills me every time. But the alternative is worse. I turned to Sarah, kneeling down to her level. I'm sorry I couldn't stay and help you, but if I don't close that door, there won't be any realities left for you to call home. To Marcus, your research is important, but all the knowledge in the multiverse won't matter if reality itself unravels. And to Alara, your fight is noble, and I wish I could stand beside you. But I'm fighting for your world too, and every other world out there. The spectral figures began to fade, their accusing glares softening. My older self remained, watching me with a mixture of sadness and pride. You understand now? He said softly. The true nature of sacrifice. It's not just about giving something up. It's about carrying the weight of that decision, living with the consequences. I nodded, feeling both drained and oddly empowered. I understand, and I'll carry them with me. Every face, every broken promise. They'll be my reminder of why I have to succeed. As the last of the figures disappeared, Echo turned to me. The path ahead will only get harder, Alex. There will be more sacrifices to make, more impossible choices. I know, I replied, squaring my shoulders. But I'm ready. For them, for all the realities out there, I have to be. With one last look at the desolate landscape around me, I stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The faces of those I'd left behind would forever be etched in my memory, driving me forward. Their sacrifices and mine would not be in vain. The wind picked up, swirling the ash around me as I walked. In its howl, I could almost hear the whispered hopes of countless realities, all depending on me to make the right choices, no matter the cost. And though the burden was heavy, I knew I would carry it for as long as it took to set things right. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy as I stumbled through yet another portal. This time, I found myself in a vast, dark space that seemed to stretch infinitely in all directions. Pinpricks of light like distant stars floated all around me. But something was different here. I could feel a presence, ancient and powerful, watching my every move. "Hello?" I called out, my voice echoing in the void. "Is anyone there?" A low, rumbling laugh answered me, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "At last you've arrived," a voice boomed, sending shivers down my spine. "The architect of chaos, the opener of doors." I spun around, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Who are you? What is this place?" The lights around me began to swirl, coalescing into a massive, shifting form. It was like looking at a living constellation, constantly changing shape yet somehow maintaining a vague humanoid appearance. 2 points of blinding light formed where eyes should be, fixing me with an intense gaze. "I am the entity," it declared, its voice resonating through my very being. "The guardian of the spaces between realities, the keeper of cosmic balance. And you, Alex, have disrupted that balance in ways you cannot comprehend." My heart raced as I realized I was face to face with the force I'd sensed pursuing me through the realities. I never meant to cause any harm," I stammered. "I was just trying to build something extraordinary." The entity's form rippled, expanding to surround me. "Intent matters little in the face of consequences. Your arrogance, your desire to bend reality to your will, has set in motion events that threaten the very fabric of existence." Images flashed before my eyes, realities colliding, worlds disintegrating, the boundaries between dimensions crumbling. The scope of the destruction I'd unwittingly caused was overwhelming. "No," I whispered, falling to my knees. "This can't be happening. There has to be a way to fix it." The entity's laughter was cold and mirthless. "Fix it? You are but an insect trying to comprehend the cosmos. The forces you've unleashed are beyond your understanding, let alone your control." Anger flared within me, pushing back against my fear. I stood up, facing the cosmic being defiantly. "Then why have you been chasing me? Why reveal yourself now if not to stop me?" The lights comprising the entity's form pulsed, and I felt a wave of curiosity emanating from it. "Your persistence is intriguing. Countless others have lost themselves in the maze of realities, going mad or simply fading away. Yet you press on, driven by a misguided sense of responsibility." "It's not misguided," I argued. "I opened this Pandora's box, and I'm determined to close it. There has to be a way." The entity was silent for a moment, its form shifting thoughtfully. Then it spoke, its voice tinged with something almost like respect. "Perhaps you are not as insignificant as I first believed. Tell me, architect, what would you do to undo the damage you've caused?" I didn't hesitate. "Anything, whatever it takes." "Even if the cost was your very existence?" The entity pressed. If closing the door meant erasing yourself from every reality, every timeline, the weight of the choice pressed down on me. Could I really sacrifice everything, not just my life, but every possible version of my life, to save the multiverse? I don't know, I admitted, but I have to try. I've seen too much, hurt too many people by running away. If my erasure is the price for setting things right, then so be it. The entity's form contracted, condensing into a more defined shape. It now looked almost like a mirror image of myself, but composed entirely of starlight. Your willingness to sacrifice is admirable, if foolish. But perhaps that very foolishness is what's needed to mend the cosmic tear. What do you mean? I asked, hope rising in my chest. The starlight version of myself gestured, and a door appeared before us. The original door, the nexus of all the chaos. This door is both the problem and the solution, the entity explained. It exists simultaneously in all realities and none. Closing it will reset the multiverse, sealing the breaches between dimensions. But the one who closes it will be cast adrift, a being without a reality to call home. I reached out towards the door, my hand trembling. And that has to be me, doesn't it? Because I opened it in the first place. The entity nodded solemnly. The symmetry of the universe demands it. But know this, Alex. What comes after is uncertain. You may cease to exist entirely, or you may become something other. Are you prepared for either outcome? I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I don't think anyone can truly be prepared for something like this, but I'm ready to face the consequences of my actions. As my hand grasped the door handle, the entity spoke one last time. Your journey has caused great harm, Alex, but it has also awakened something rare in the cosmos, the capacity for true sacrifice. Remember that, whatever comes next. With a final nod of determination, I began to close the door. The starlight comprising the entity's form started to swirl around me, faster and faster, as reality itself seemed to bend and warp. Good luck, architect, the entity's voice echoed as it faded away. May your sacrifice bring the balance you sought to disrupt. As the door slammed shut, I felt myself being torn apart, my very essence scattered across the reforming multiverse. In that final moment of consciousness, I understood that my journey had only been the beginning. Whatever I was to become or unbecome, the true impact of my choices was yet to unfold. The entity, revealed at last, had shown me the true scale of my actions, and in doing so, it had given me the chance to make the ultimate sacrifice, a fitting end for the architect who dared to reshape reality itself. My entire body ached as I dragged myself through what I hoped would be the last portal. The constant shifts between realities had taken their toll, leaving me battered both physically and mentally. But I knew I couldn't give up now. Not when I was so close to the end. As I stumbled out of the swirling vortex, I found myself in a place that defied description. It was as if reality itself was breaking down here. The landscape, if you could call it that, was a chaos of fragmenting dimensions. Pieces of different worlds floated by, a chunk of cityscape here, a slice of primordial jungle there, all of it threaded through with crackling lines of energy that hurt my eyes to look at directly. This is it, I muttered to myself, my voice sounding strange and distorted in this fractured space. The edge of everything, the final push. I took a tentative step forward, and the ground beneath me shifted, transforming from solid earth to something that felt like walking on water, then to nothing at all as I found myself floating. Alex, a familiar voice called out. I turned to see Sarah, the young girl I had left behind in the forest reality, running towards me. But something was off. Her form flickered and glitched, sometimes appearing as I remembered her, other times aging rapidly or de-aging into an infant. Sarah? I called back, confused and alarmed. How are you here? She reached me, her hand passing through mine as she tried to grab it. I'm not really here, Alex. None of us are. We're echoes, fragments of the realities you've touched, and they're all falling apart. As if to emphasize her point, a massive tremor shook the non-space around us. In the distance, I saw entire sections of reality simply blink out of existence. "No," I whispered, the enormity of the situation crashing down on me. "It's happening too fast. I'm running out of time." Another voice joined us, and I turned to see Marcus, the scientist from the advanced world. Like Sarah, his form was unstable, shifting between different versions of himself. "The collapse is accelerating exponentially," he explained, his voice overlapping with itself as if multiple versions were speaking at once. "The boundaries between realities are breaking down completely." Panic clawed at my throat. What do I do? How do I stop this? A third figure appeared, Ilara, the warrior queen. Her regal bearing remained even as her form fluctuated wildly. "You know what you must do, Alex. The original door. You have to find it and close it." I spun around, searching desperately for any sign of the door that had started all of this. But in this chaotic space, everything looked alien and unfamiliar. "I can't see it," I cried out, frustration and fear battling for dominance. "How am I supposed to find one door in all of this?" Sarah's small hand passed through my arm, leaving a tingling sensation. "You have to focus, Alex. The door is a part of you. It's your creation, your responsibility." Marcus nodded, his multiple voices creating an eerie chorus. "Think of it as a quantum problem. The door exists in all states simultaneously until you observe it. You have to will it into existence." "But be warned," Ilara added, her warrior's intensity burning in her eyes. "Summoning the door will draw the attention of forces beyond your comprehension. You must be prepared to face them." I closed my eyes, trying to block out the visual chaos around me. I focused on the image of the door in my mind, the simple wooden structure that had seemed so innocuous when I first created it. I thought of all the wonders and horrors I had seen because of it, all the lives I had touched and changed. "Come on," I muttered through gritted teeth. "Show yourself." The air around me began to vibrate, and I felt a pull in my gut, as if something was trying to tear itself out of me. I opened my eyes to see reality warping even more dramatically, folding in on itself like a cosmic origami. And there, at the center of the maelstrom, was the door. "You did it," Sarah exclaimed, her voice filled with a mix of awe and fear. But there was no time for celebration. As soon as the door appeared, I felt a massive presence bearing down on us. The entity I had encountered before materialized, its form even more incomprehensible in this fractured space. "So, Architect," its voice boomed, shaking what was left of reality around us. "You've come to undo your great work. But are you truly prepared for the consequences?" I straightened up, facing the cosmic being with all the courage I could muster. "I am. Whatever the cost. I have to fix this." The entity's form rippled, and I felt waves of conflicting emotions emanating from it. Anger, curiosity, and something almost like respect. "Very well, but know this. Closing the door will reset the multiverse. All the realities you've visited, all the lives you've touched, they will be rewritten. And you, the linchpin of this chaos, will be cast adrift in the void between worlds." I swallowed hard, the weight of the choice pressing down on me. I looked at Sarah, Marcus, and Ilara, reflections of just a few of the people I had met on my journey. Will you remember any of this?" Sarah smiled sadly, her form stabilizing for a moment. "We are not real, Alex. Not anymore. We're just echoes of what could have been. But by closing the door, you give us, all versions of us, a chance to exist again." Marcus nodded. "The multiverse will heal. New possibilities will arise. It's the only way." "Then do what must be done," Ilara said, her voice filled with the command of a true leader. "Be the hero we know you can be." With a deep breath, I turned back to the door. The entity watched silently as I grasped the handle, feeling the weight of all existence in that simple piece of metal. Whatever happens next, I said, more to myself than anyone else. I'm sorry, and I hope it's enough. As I began to push the door closed, the chaos around me intensified. I caught final glimpses of Sarah, Marcus, and Alara as they faded away, along with every other fragment of reality. The entity's form expanded, encompassing everything. Farewell, architect. Its voice echoed as the door finally slammed shut. Your journey ends here, but the story of the multiverse, that is eternal. In that last moment, as I felt myself being unmade and remade, cast into the endless void between realities, I allowed myself a small smile. The final push was over. Whatever came next, I had done all I could. The multiverse shuddered, reset, and began anew. The fabric of reality trembled around me as I stood before the original door, my hand hovering inches from its worn handle. The weight of countless worlds pressed down on my shoulders, each second that ticked by bringing the multiverse closer to total collapse. This is it, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the cacophony of disintegrating realities. The moment of truth. But as I reached for the handle, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Wait! I turned to see Echo, the fragmented consciousness I'd encountered earlier in my journey. Her form was even more unstable now, flickering in and out of existence like a faulty hologram. Echo, what are you doing here? I asked, my hand still outstretched towards the door. Her eyes, swirling pools of cosmic energy, met mine. I'm here to make sure you understand the full weight of your choice, Alex. Once you close that door, there's no going back. As if to emphasize her point, the space around us shuddered violently. In the distance, I could see entire realities blinking out of existence, leaving behind nothing but void. I know the stakes, I said, trying to keep the fear out of my voice. If I don't close this door, everything ends. All realities, all possibilities, gone forever. Echo nodded solemnly. Yes, but have you considered the personal cost? Closing the door means cutting yourself off from your home reality forever. You'll be adrift in the void between worlds, possibly for eternity. The gravity of her words hit me like a physical blow. I'd known, on some level, that this would be a one-way trip, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I don't have a choice, I stammered. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one, right? A new voice joined our conversation, deep and resonant. Do they? Or is that just what you tell yourself to justify your actions? I spun around to see the entity, the cosmic being I'd encountered before. Its form was even more incomprehensible now, a swirling mass of energy and possibility that hurt to look at directly. What do you mean? I asked, confusion and doubt creeping into my mind. The entity's form shifted, taking on a vague approximation of my own appearance. You've been running for so long, Alex, jumping from reality to reality, never staying long enough to form real connections. Is this final act of heroism just another form of escape? Its words struck a chord, forcing me to confront truths I'd been avoiding. Had I been using this quest as an excuse to avoid dealing with my own issues? Echo placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch barely perceptible. The entity speaks harshly, but there's truth in its words. You need to be sure, Alex. Are you closing this door because it's truly the right thing to do, or because you're afraid to face your own reality? I closed my eyes, trying to sort through the tumult of emotions and doubts swirling within me. Images flashed through my mind. My life before all this began, the wonders and horrors I'd witnessed on my journey, the faces of those I'd met and left behind. When I opened my eyes, my resolve had hardened. You're right. Both of you. I have been running, and maybe part of me is still trying to run, but that doesn't change the fact that this needs to be done. I turned to face the entity. You've seen the destruction spreading across the multiverse. If I don't close this door, everything ends. Not just my reality, but all realities. I can't let that happen, no matter the personal cost. The entity's form rippled, and I felt a wave of something almost like approval emanating from it. So you choose sacrifice over self-preservation. Interesting. Echo squeezed my shoulder, her form stabilizing slightly. Are you absolutely sure, Alex? Once you close that door, there's no telling what will become of you. You might cease to exist entirely. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. I'm sure. Whatever happens to me, at least I'll know I did everything I could to set things right. With a newfound sense of purpose, I turned back to the door. As my hand closed around the handle, I felt a surge of energy course through me. Wait, the entity said, its voice softer now. Before you do this, know that your choice has consequences beyond what you can imagine. The multiverse will reset, realities will be rewritten. The lives you've touched, the connections you've made, they may never come to pass in the new order of things. I paused, the weight of this revelation settling over me. So, no one will remember? Everything I've done, everyone I've met, it'll all be erased? Echo's voice was gentle but firm. Not erased, Alex, changed. You're giving everyone, a chance at a future. Even if it's not the one you've seen. I nodded, understanding the true magnitude of my choice. Then let's hope it's a better future than the one I'm leaving behind. As I began to push the door closed, the chaos around us intensified. I caught final glimpses of Echo and the entity as they faded away, along with every other fragment of reality I'd encountered. Goodbye, Alex, Echo's voice echoed in my mind. And thank you. The entity's last words came as a whisper. Your journey ends here, Architect. But the story of the multiverse, that is eternal. With a final surge of effort, I slammed the door shut. There was a moment of absolute silence, then a deafening roar as the multiverse rearranged itself around me. Everything went white, and I felt myself being unmade and remade, cast into the endless void between realities. As consciousness slipped away, I allowed myself a small smile. The choice had been made. Whatever came next, I had done all I could. The multiverse shuddered, reset, and began anew. My hand trembled as it rested on the handle of the original door. The air around me crackled with energy, reality itself seeming to hold its breath in anticipation of what was to come. I could feel the weight of countless worlds, countless lives, all hanging in the balance of this one moment. This is it, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the low rumble of collapsing realities in the distance. The end of everything, and maybe the beginning. As I began to push the door closed, a cacophony of voices erupted around me. Echoes of all those I'd encountered on my journey, their words overlapping in a dizzying chorus. Sarah's young voice cut through first. Alex, wait, are you sure this is the only way? I paused, my grip tightening on the handle. I have to be sure, Sarah. There's too much at stake. Marcus, the scientist, chimed in next. The quantum implications are staggering. Have you considered all the variables? I've considered as much as I can, I replied, gritting my teeth against the strain of holding the door. But sometimes you have to act, even without all the answers. Ilara's regal tone rang out. A true leader makes the hard choices, Alex. But are you prepared for the consequences? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I don't think anyone can be truly prepared for this, but I'm as ready as I'll ever be. The entity's voice boomed above all others. Once you close that door, Architect, there's no turning back. All that you've known, all that you've experienced, it will be rewritten. I understand, I said, my voice stronger now. But it's the only way to save the multiverse. Echo's gentle whisper came next. Remember, Alex, closing the door means cutting yourself off from your home reality forever. You'll be adrift in the void between worlds. A lump formed in my throat at her words. I know, but if that's the price to set things right, I'll pay it. As I resumed pushing the door, the resistance grew stronger. It felt like trying to move a mountain with my bare hands. Sweat beaded on my forehead, and my muscles screamed in protest. It's too heavy, I grunted, straining against the cosmic forces at work. Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me. Looking over, I saw hazy, translucent forms of Sarah, Marcus, Ilara, and all the others I'd met on my journey. Sarah's spectral hand joined mine on the door handle. "You're not alone, Alex. We're here with you." Marcus nodded, adding his strength to the effort. The combined force of multiple realities, fascinating. "Together," Ilara commanded, her regal bearing unchanged even in this ghostly form. With their help, the door began to move more easily. Inch by inch, we pushed it closed. As it swung shut, I could see glimpses of other worlds through the narrowing gap, flashes of lives unlived, paths not taken, possibilities both wonderful and terrible. "What will happen to all of you?" I asked, my voice strained. Echo's voice drifted around us. "We are echoes, Alex. Fragments of possibilities. When the door closes, we'll be rewritten along with everything else." The entity's presence loomed large, but the essence of who they are, the core of their beings, that will remain, seated throughout the new multiverse. As the door neared its frame, the resistance suddenly vanished. For a moment, everything seemed to hang in perfect balance. "This is it," I said, looking at the spectral forms around me. "Thank you, all of you, for everything." Sarah smiled, her form already starting to fade. "No, Alex. Thank you for giving us a chance at a future." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Whatever comes next, know that your actions here have mattered." "Be brave," Ilara said, her voice strong even as her image dissipated. "And never forget the hero you've become." With a final push, I closed the door. The click of the latch echoed with the finality of a universe taking its last breath. For a split second, there was absolute silence. Then, a blinding light erupted from the seams of the door, engulfing everything. I felt myself being unmade, my very essence scattering across the reforming multiverse. In that last moment of consciousness, I heard the entity's voice one final time. "Well done, architect. Your journey ends here, but the story of the multiverse, that is eternal." The light intensified, becoming all-consuming. I felt a sensation of falling, of being stretched across infinite realities and compressed into a single point. All at once, as my awareness faded, I caught fleeting glimpses of new worlds forming, lives beginning, possibilities blossoming. And though I knew I would not be a part of them, I felt a profound sense of peace. The door was closed. The multiverse was safe. Whatever became of me now, I had fulfilled my purpose. In the vast, rekindled expanse of existence, a new story began to unfold, one that would never know how close it had come to never existing at all. And somewhere in the spaces between realities, a fragment of consciousness that had once been called Alex drifted, watchful and at peace. The multiverse exhaled, reset, and began anew. The blinding light faded, and I found myself existing. That in itself was a surprise. I had expected oblivion, or at the very least, some form of cosmic void. Instead, I was aware, conscious, though in a way that defied my previous understanding of the term. I had no body, no physical form that I could discern. I was everywhere and nowhere, a consciousness spread thin across the fabric of a newborn multiverse. Countless realities unfurled before me, each one a tapestry of possibility and potential. "Hello?" I called out, though I had no voice in the traditional sense. My thoughts simply resonated through the cosmic ether. "Is anyone there?" A familiar presence made itself known, vast and incomprehensible. The entity. "Architect," its voice boomed, though I heard it more in my mind than with any physical sense. "You have succeeded. The multiverse has been reset." I struggled to process this information to understand my new state of being. "But I'm still here. How is that possible? I thought closing the door would erase me from existence." The entity's response carried a note of what might have been amusement. Existence is not so easily erased, architect. You have become something new, something other. As I tried to grasp my new reality, I became aware of the infinite streams of possibility flowing around me. I could see glimpses of familiar faces, Sarah, Marcus, Ilara, living out new lives in rewritten realities. They don't remember me, I realized, a pang of something like sadness rippling through my non-corporeal form. No, the entity confirmed, the old reality has been overwritten, but the essence of who they are, the core of their beings, that remains. Your actions have given them, and countless others, a chance at existence. I watched as a version of Sarah grew up happy and loved, never knowing the loneliness of the endless forest. Marcus made groundbreaking scientific discoveries in a world untouched by interdimensional chaos. Ilara led her people to prosperity without the threat of cosmic collapse. What am I now? I asked, still struggling to comprehend my new state of being. What's my purpose in this new reality? The entity's presence shifted, enveloping me in a way that felt almost comforting. You have become a guardian architect, a watcher at the edges of reality. Your consciousness now spans the multiverse, helping to maintain the balance you fought so hard to restore. As if to demonstrate, the entity guided my awareness to a point where two realities were beginning to bleed into each other. Without fully understanding how, I found myself able to reinforce the boundary, gently nudging the universes back into alignment. I can help maintain the multiverse, I marveled, a sense of purpose filling me. Indeed, the entity replied, but remember, you are no longer bound by the laws of any single reality. You exist outside of time and space as mortals understand it. This realization brought with it a profound sense of loneliness. Will I ever be able to interact with them again, to be a part of their world? The entity's response was tinged with what might have been sympathy. Not in the way you once did, but you can watch over them, guide them in subtle ways. Your influence will be felt, even if it is not recognized. As I pondered this, I became aware of another presence, or rather multiple presences. Other consciousnesses, similar to what I had become, spread throughout the multiverse. You are not alone, architect, one of these beings communicated. Its essence felt familiar somehow. Echo? I asked, recognizing the fragmented consciousness I had encountered on my journey. In a way, the being replied, I am what became of Echo in this new reality. Like you, I have been transformed. Another consciousness made itself known, this one carrying the weight of eons. Welcome to the ranks of the Watchers, young one, it greeted me. We have much to teach you about your new role. I felt overwhelmed by the scope of my new existence, by the vastness of the multiverse spread out before me. I'm not sure I'm ready for this, I admitted. The entity's presence enveloped me once more. You have already proven yourself capable of far more than you realize, architect. This new reality is, in many ways, of your own making. Now you must learn to be its caretaker. As I watched the infinite streams of possibility flow around me, I began to understand the true magnitude of what I had become. I was no longer Alex, the architect who had inadvertently threatened the multiverse. I was something more, something vital to the very fabric of existence. I'm ready to learn, I declared, my consciousness expanding to embrace my new role. The entity's approval radiated through the cosmic ether. Then let your new journey begin, Watcher. The multiverse awaits. And so, in this new reality, I took my place among the guardians of existence. No longer bound by the constraints of a single life or a single world, I became a silent protector, a gentle guide, an unseen hand helping to shape the infinite possibilities of the multiverse. As I settled into my new role, I couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. The door may have closed on my old life, but it had opened up an entire multiverse of new beginnings. And in this new reality, I would ensure that the story of existence continued, unfolding in all its infinite, beautiful complexity. The cosmic winds of the multiverse swirled around me, carrying fragments of realities both familiar and utterly alien. I had no physical form now, no body to speak of. I was a consciousness adrift, a being of pure thought and energy, exiled from the world I once called home. Time had lost all meaning. It could have been days, years, or millennia since I closed that fateful door and reset the multiverse. In this state of exile, past and future blurred together, and the present was an ever-shifting kaleidoscope of possibility. "Hello?" I called out into the void, my thoughts echoing through the fabric of reality. "Is anyone there?" Silence answered me, as it had countless times before, but I couldn't stop trying. The loneliness of exile was a constant companion, a gnawing emptiness that threatened to consume what was left of my identity. As I drifted, I caught glimpses of familiar faces living out their lives in the rewritten realities. Sarah, the young girl from the forest world, grew up happy and loved. Marcus made groundbreaking scientific discoveries. Alara led her people to prosperity. But none of them remembered me. To them, I had never existed. "At least they're safe," I murmured to myself, finding some solace in their happiness. It was worth it. It had to be. Suddenly, a presence made itself known, vast, ancient, and familiar. The entity. "Architect," its voice resonated through my being. "You seem troubled." A bitter laugh escaped me, though I had no mouth to produce it. "Troubled? I'm exiled, entity, cut off from everything and everyone I ever knew. How else should I feel?" The entity's response carried a note of what might have been sympathy. "Your sacrifice was necessary, Architect. The multiverse endures because of your choice." "I know," I sighed, my consciousness rippling with frustration. "But knowing doesn't make it any easier. I'm alone here watching lives I can never be part of, worlds I can never touch." The entity's presence shifted, enveloping me in a way that felt almost comforting. "You are not as alone as you believe, Architect. There are others like you, guardians, watchers, beings who exist between realities." As if on cue, I felt other presences making themselves known. Consciousnesses similar to what I had become, spread throughout the multiverse. One of them reached out, its essence feeling vaguely familiar. "Hello, Alex," it greeted me, using the name I had almost forgotten. Or should I say, fellow watcher? "Echo?" I asked, recognizing the fragmented consciousness I had encountered on my journey. "Is that you?" "In a way," the being replied. "I am what became of Echo in this new reality. Like you, I have been transformed." Another consciousness joined us, this one carrying the weight of eons. "Welcome, young one," it greeted me. "We have been waiting for you to fully awaken to your new existence." I felt overwhelmed by these revelations. "There are others? How many of us are there?" "We are few," the ancient consciousness explained, "but we are vital. We maintain the boundaries between realities, guide the flow of possibility, and watch over the multiverse you help to save." The entity's voice boomed once more. "This is your true exile, Architect. Not a punishment, but a calling. You have become something greater than you were, something necessary for the continuation of existence itself." I struggled to process this information. "But I don't know how to do any of that. I'm just me." Echo's presence brushed against my consciousness, a gesture that felt like a reassuring touch. "You will learn, Alex. We all did, and we will teach you." As I pondered this, I became aware of a disturbance in the fabric of reality. Two universes were beginning to bleed into each other, their boundaries weakening. "What's happening?" I asked, alarmed. The ancient consciousness guided my awareness to the disturbance. "Watch, and let your instincts guide you." Without fully understanding how, I found myself able to reinforce the boundary, gently nudging the universes back into alignment. The act filled me with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since closing the door. I did that?" I marveled. "You did," the entity confirmed. "This is your role now, Architect. A guardian of the multiverse, a caretaker of reality itself." As the truth of my new existence settled over me, I felt a mix of emotions. The loneliness of exile was still there, a dull ache in the core of my being. But alongside it grew a sense of purpose, of belonging to something greater than myself. "It won't be easy," I said, more to myself than to the others. Learning to be whatever I am now, watching over worlds I can never truly be part of. Echo's presence wrapped around me, a cosmic embrace. "No, it won't be easy, but you won't be alone. We're here with you, Alex. Fellow exiles, fellow guardians," the ancient consciousness added, "and in time you may find that this exile is not a prison, but a gateway to understanding the true nature of existence." As I looked out at the vast expanse of the multiverse, I began to see it with new eyes. Each reality was a story waiting to unfold, each possibility a thread in the grand tapestry of existence, and I was now part of the force that kept it all in balance. "All right," I said, my resolve strengthening. "I'm ready to learn, to become what I need to be." The entity's approval radiated through the cosmic ether. "Then let your new journey begin, Watcher. The multiverse awaits." And so, in this state of exile, I took my place among the guardians of existence. The door to my old life might have closed, but an entire multiverse of new beginnings had opened before me. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself, but it was a life of purpose, of cosmic significance. As I settled into my new role, watching over the infinite streams of reality, I couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder. Yes, I was exiled from the world I once knew. But in becoming so, I had found a new home in the vast, beautiful complexity of the multiverse itself. Lie down and get ready for a night of nightmares. I should have known something was wrong the moment I stepped into that house. The air felt heavy, charged with an electricity that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. But I ignored it, chalking it up to excitement and nerves. After all, this was supposed to be my fresh start, my escape from the suffocating memories of a failed marriage and a stagnant career. As I turned the key in the lock, a chill ran down my spine. The door creaked open, revealing a cavernous foyer that seemed to swallow the afternoon light. "Welcome home, Alex," I muttered to myself, trying to muster some enthusiasm. The movers bustled around me, carrying boxes and furniture. Their voices echoed strangely in the empty spaces, as if the house was absorbing their words. "Where do you want this?"